Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with sweet potato muffins. That's right, you've had sweet potatoes in pies and possibly casseroles with little marshmallows on top. But did you know the sweet potato also makes an incredible muffin, as I believe these pecan-studded beauties prove. And with Thanksgiving right around the corner, I think the timing is perfect for you to learn how to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. And to make these, you're going to need a couple cups of cooked mashed sweet potatoes. And one very likely scenario is you would make these with leftover sweet potatoes. But if you don't have any of that around, you're going to have to cook and mash some sweet potatoes from scratch. And sure, you could peel and boil them, but my favorite way to be either roast these in the oven or, like I did these, microwave them until very soft. And then all I need to do is split them open and scoop that soft flesh into a bowl. So we will review that on the blog post, but one way or another, you're going to need 2 cups of pure mashed sweet potatoes. And once we've taken care of that, we will move on to the dry ingredients, where we will begin with a little white on white. So in a bowl, we have a couple cups of all-purpose flour, to which we're going to add some baking powder, as well as baking soda. And then, like just about everything we make, we're also going to need some salt, as well as some spices. So we'll go ahead and toss in a generous amount of cinnamon, as well as some ground ginger, and then we'll do a little pinch of freshly grated nutmeg. So even though we are doing muffins here, we are definitely borrowing on the flavor profile from a typical sweet potato pie. And then what we'll do is we'll grab a whisk and mix this thoroughly. And of course, that's in lieu of sifting. So we will go ahead and we'll whisk that enthusiastically for about a minute, at which point we can move on to the wet ingredients. So in a mixing bowl, we're going to start with 4 large whole eggs, to which we're going to add some white sugar. And I know that's a terrifyingly large amount, but don't worry. We're also adding brown sugar. And then we'll go ahead and we'll take a whisk and mix this for about 2 minutes, until the mixture gets kind of light and foamy and looks like this. And once that's been accomplished, we're going to stop and introduce some vegetable oil. And yes, I realize that's a lot of oil, but that's fine because we're going to balance that out by adding some melted butter. And then we can go ahead and whisk all that together, at which point we can bring everything together to form the final batter. So in a large mixing bowl, we have our now cooled mashed sweet potatoes, to which we're going to add about a cup of chopped pecans. And as usual, anytime we have nuts in a recipe, those are optional, but they are very highly recommended in this. And then to this, we'll go ahead and dump in our wet ingredients. And then last but not least, the dry ingredients. And then all we need to do is simply mix this together. And I'm going to stick with the spatula because I just used it to scrape the wet ingredients in here, but a whisk would also work. And basically all we want to do is mix this until the dry ingredients disappear and then stop. And by the way, any kind of variety of sweet potato is going to work here. As you'll notice, I'm using the orange-fleshed ones, which are very often incorrectly sold as yams, because they're really not true yams. But regardless, any sweet potato is going to work. I just prefer the orange flesh because it looks nice, and from what I hear is a little better nutritionally. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and mix this together. Like I said, just until our dry ingredients disappear, at which point we're going to stop, and we'll let this sit for about 10 minutes while we prep our muffin pan, which is going to be very simple. We'll go ahead and line our pan with these little paper muffin cups. And even though they're made out of parchment paper and claim to be non-stick, I do like to give these a little spray with the vegetable oil just to be safe. There's nothing worse than tearing that paper off a muffin and having half the muffin stick to it. And then once those are set, we can go ahead and transfer our batter in. And for me, the easiest way is to just use some kind of scoop. And I'm not sure exactly who they are, but they say you should fill these up about 3/4 of the way. And if you do, this recipe will make 2 dozen muffins. But you know what? I'm an overfiller from way back. So as you can see, I filled these almost all the way to the top. So I only ended up getting about 20, which was still way more than I needed. And then to finish these off, we're going to go ahead and add some more chopped pecans to the top, mostly for appearance, but also to warn people who are deathly allergic to pecans that these could be dangerous. And then last but not least, we're going to give the top of each one a little sprinkling of demerara sugar, which is nothing more than sugar that's just a little larger grain, a little larger crystal. And once these are baked, that's going to give that top a little bit of extra texture, as well as a little bit of a shine, sort of a sparkle. Think of that demerara sugar as like muffin bling. And then once those are set, we're going to give it the old tappa. Oh, it's been a while. We'll give that a couple bangs on the table to settle the batter down, at which point we can transfer that into the center of a 350-degree oven for 25 minutes, or until they look like this. And of course, to make sure they're done, you could always poke the center with a bamboo skewer, and if it comes out clean like that, they're done. And of course, if that came out with a bunch of wet batter on it, you got to give them more time. And then what we'll do is we'll just let them sit right in that muffin pan for about 10 minutes to cool down a little bit, before carefully removing them to a rack to cool. And as soon as they cool completely, they are ready to enjoy. Except I'm going to be honest here. I did not wait. They looked and smelled too amazing, so I decided to tear into one while it was still warm. As you can see, they have a glorious color, and the texture for me is just perfect. Moist, rich, tender, not too crumbly, not too cakey, and believe it or not, surprisingly light. So for me, the perfect combo is something that seems very decadent, very rich, and yet isn't too heavy or sweet. And we're obviously calling them muffins here, but in case you were wondering, yes, if you frosted these with maybe a cream cheese frosting or some kind of marshmallow buttercream, is that even a thing? Probably. But if you frosted these, you could totally call them cupcakes. But either way, muffin or cupcake, frosted or unfrosted, these really are fantastic. So I really do hope you give these a try soon. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.